everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxter.
Steve, welcome for the first time to the program. Today, we are talking about something that Steve and I have talked about doing a video on for a number of weeks. And this came up in a commentary, and we got fixated on it. I want to say it was the first episode of Daredevil commentary.
It was the first episode of Daredevil, yeah.
And we got really hung up on it, and we were like, this should be a video, and then we couldn't stop talking about it. They were like, no, stop! We're going to make this a GNN at some point, and here's that GNN. So we'll see where this goes. Steve and I haven't really talked this out ahead of time besides that video. We're going to kind of just, as we always do with the show, have some discourse about this idea and see where we go. The question today is what should the ethics be, I guess, of having of child actors, of having children in production, and specifically having kids have to do really like traumatic things on film, or things that you would think would traumatize them, or at the very least would traumatize a kid that was watching it. Like, what is going too far to have a kid do on film? And where I'd like to begin with this, Steve, is the even greater question of, are we already too demanding sometimes of children by having them do these very often really rigorous jobs in a world that is, or at least a country, that is kind of against child labor?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I mean, how many times have we heard stories about child actors that grow up to have horrible lives and have bad parental relationships? Like Jessica Jones, everything with her best friend.
It's a commentary about
but
that.
She plays Hellcat. Like everything with her and her mom having to do with that relationship and what the pressure is of being in that kind of industry, but also not being completely in control of what you're allowed to say or do. Because most of these actors, almost all of these actors, they don't make the decisions. They are under the control of what their parents allow them to do.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So like if they want a project, they might not necessarily get it, and if they don't want a project, their parents might goad them into it.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of legacy things, but very often it's a case of my mother or my father was in the business, and I'm expected to be in the business. And like why are we as accepting of that as we are when we're so against child labor in so many other industries?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I mean, there isn't exactly like a guideline of what kids should or should not do in films. Like I went and looked some of the stuff up just in case we needed the information.
Good.
And the rules start and stop with, did the parents say okay?
Wow.
Like that's really about it. And barring stuff like so that would already be like a criminal act, like child pornography or something like that, like they can pretty much do anything.
Wow.
And so when that's the case, it is a little bit hypocritical. But then I wonder if like when we get child actors do these things, are there precautions? Like, are there stunt doubles? Are there like editing tricks now? Or do the studios themselves try and take some control of the situation away from the child, or is it all the child? Because like certain scenes, like the scene in Kingpin or in Daredevil that we talked about with this, where Kingpin is beating his father with a hammer, you can't do that any other way. Like, the kid has to know that context and has to know what he's doing.
That's true. No, you're right. So you're suggesting that there might be times where you'd shoot like two elements separately.
Exactly.
And you'd have a kid that isn't even really aware of what the situation is, and you give him enough motivation that you can kind of buy his side of it. But you're right. I mean, obviously that kid had to have known what was going on. Where can you decide for yourself where the line should be drawn? Because I find this to be a really sticky question. Because the thing is, like, you can't just blanket statement say, well, children shouldn't have to work before a certain age, or like it's wrong to do. And the thing is, like, I think people don't think about it because acting isn't considered work, but you and I know from knowing people that have acted, and from looking at lots of behind the scenes things and doing a lot of research on the industry, that's not true. Acting is grueling work very often, and you have these really super we long days, and I'm sure that there are precautions, like you said, sometimes to make sure that the kids aren't there too long. This is the reason that little kids very often we even to this day we go after twins. so that we can split up the workload, so that it's not the same person there all day long. The obvious example of that is Full House, and we've been doing that with kids forever. But like so I could see somebody, if they really looked into it, going, oh well, kids shouldn't be actors, but the problem is, for the sake of the art, you can't just not have children in things. What do you do? But then so obviously this is more complicated of a question. You can't possibly say you just wouldn't ever have child actors, even have that on stage, of course. But then, and there's also this there's some play in it also. It is work, but it's also play, and that it can be difficult to draw that line. But I don't know. Do you where would you draw that line?
This is one of those questions where there's, like you said, there is no place you can throw all this onto, and I don't want to just say it's a case by case basis, because that's my
go-to
really
so often.
But it is
kind
of there.
It is. It's a depends question.
It is a depends question, and I mean part of it goes into, and this may not be a depends question, but it is for me. But I think part of it also goes into how mature your children are at certain ages.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I was growing up, there was no restrictions on what I could watch. If the movie was rated R and I was 7, I watched it. It didn't matter to my parents. It didn't matter to me, and it all became a matter of me understanding that I am watching something that's fictitious.
Yeah.
And so,
sure.
If it's me, if I have a kid, if he says I want to watch Deadpool, I'll give him Deadpool. It's all a matter of the kid being able to understand and take it that way. And I think child acting, in a lot of ways, that's played the same way of this is what you're expected to do. Can you handle this? Do you understand this? And then other times you don't have to necessarily tell them. The kid in The Shining had no idea what the context of his scenes were. If you just shoot those scenes, it's not scary. The people in The Grudge, a lot of the kids in that movie, they were informed that they are playing monsters or that they're in a horror movie. But because of the nature of horror storytelling, a lot of it isn't scary until after it's edited.
Yeah, it's not scary in the moment, and you're just having fun, pretending to be scary. It's all about perspective.
Exactly. So I think it really just matters on is the kid able to understand this? You have to be able to treat the kid as their own person. You can't talk it down to them, I don't think.
Yeah, well, and my philosophy on child rearing and speaking to children. I think that's just the golden rule across the board. Don't talk down to children. Have respect for children. Speak to children like they're people, and talk just above their level so they learn something. And they have to ask questions to get there. But the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm feeling less weird about specific things that children are made to do sometimes on film. Although sometimes it's weird to have kids say really, really profane things, Chloe
Grace Moretz in Kick-Ass, yeah.
Yeah, there's that, but we've seen, I can't think of a good example. We've seen horror films where you'll have a child that a little girl or something, and it's all, for some reason, it's always a little girl. Little girls are always creepier than little boys for some reason. We do this in movies all the time, and you'll have a little girl that will be possessed by some really scary entity, and she says the absolute most vulgar thing you could possibly imagine anyone saying, it's way beyond the Chloe Grace Moretz thing, and then you're just just I don't know if I can make myself as a director ask a child to do that.
Yeah.
I've seen 6 or 7 year olds very convincingly. And again, I can't think of where I saw this, but I saw a 6 or 7 year old once, a little girl in a movie, very convincingly deliver a line with the C word in it. I couldn't ask a little girl to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's tough to make those.
Well, I guess Chloe Grace Moretz had to do that one, but it was in a funny context. This was a really creepy, messed up kind of context.
That's true. And I mean, I think Chloe Grace Moretz is also, at least when she was making that, she was old enough to at least understand what she was doing as well. That's the other thing of you make children say lines or do things, particularly The Exorcist. The Exorcist is a really creepy movie if you think about that as a child being in that situation.
Yeah.
You make them do things that they don't necessarily have any sort of conception of in their minds. And if they don't, is it worse or is it better?
Yeah, and then some of it just becomes a matter of, like, gratuitous stuff in movie making in the first place, where sometimes it feels wrong because it doesn't even feel necessary. Where like it's bad movie making in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that goes back to the depends thing of like, what context are you making people do this? Like, if you explain the story of Daredevil to the kid that was in that scene and he did what he did, I think he would be fine with it. At the same time, though, if you are young and you understand the context of it, there's no telling whether or not that has psychological effects on you later. Like, if you are a kid the little girl that's in all of the Halloween, not all of, but like 4 or 5 of the Halloween movies, that's constantly being chased by Michael Myers. Like, that kid had to have had some nightmares about that at some point. Who takes responsibility for that?
Yeah, or the girl from Poltergeist.
Yeah, or the girl from Poltergeist. Or even Carrie, right? Like, I think that actress was much younger.
Carrie she would have been a teenager.
Was she? Okay, I don't remember. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
And then, of course, Grace Moretz came in and did it again. In a really inferior remake. She was as good as she could have been with that material, but I reviewed that with my mom.
Part of that movie is miscasting. I just don't think she should have been in that movie.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. Well, and then they missed the point with stuff because she was beautiful all the way through it, and she's supposed to be made up to look like nobody could stand to be around her. And so when they have the transformation, you don't even buy that it's a transformation because it's Chloe Grace Moretz going to a slightly more dressed up, gussied up Chloe Grace Moretz. But yeah, like, at what point does it move from necessary to tell your story, and then, like, if you're respectful to the child and you have every precaution and you do the best you can, and maybe there's still some slight ethical question, but you're at least trying to treat people as people and not as a means to an end. When does it go from that to exploitative?
Yeah, I mean,
I you know what, I just thought of this. I don't mind saying this. I'll be totally transparent for a minute. I have even had, and I haven't had this a lot, but it's happened once or twice, especially when he was a lot littler. And with Freddy too, I've had people say that I exploit my children by putting them on the YouTube channel.
Right.
And, like, I don't know where the line is. I don't know where, and obviously, like, different people have different opinions, but some people think that it's wrong to put children on film before they're old enough to, like, make up their own mind about whether or not they would want to do that, and that, like, it's not consensual.
But I mean, that gets really sticky because the internet is not so different from filming your kids as a child and having their pictures all over the place.
I don't think it is either. Yeah. I mean,
it's the principle of the matter that gets really confusing, especially with the internet.
And then obviously the movie thing is a different thing because you are obviously using those kids, for lack of a better word, as a prop in a thing, just like all the adult characters are in a way, to a degree, props to make a movie work.
Well, that's the thing with, like, even specific filmmakers like Hitchcock. Hitchcock didn't care about actors. Hitchcock doesn't care if an actor is happy, uncomfortable, whatever. He literally says to them that they are just props for his story. And that's part of the reason some of them have really bad relationships with him. He doesn't believe that the actors deserve anything more than he's already giving them. And so when he has kids in his movies, I can't imagine that's a good experience for them. I just reviewed this recently with North by Northwest. There's a scene in that movie where Eva Marie Saint's about to shoot a blank at Cary Grant's character, and in the background there's a kid that must have been there all day because he covers his hands before the gunshot goes off, so he knows that's going to be there. So it's stuff like that where, like, the kid cares. There's an effect on the people involved in the production, but Hitchcock doesn't care. Like, there are some movies where kids get to do some pretty messed up things in Hitchcock's work, and Hitchcock doesn't take responsibility for it. He doesn't care.
Yeah, and then the problem is, I don't know if this is a real term, but like I've always thought of that as like method directing almost, where you're looking at like you said, you're not looking at your actors as people, you're looking at them as part of the scenery, and adults know what they're signing up for. I mean, like we've seen, and there's other directors that have done that too. I can't remember if who am I thinking of? I can't remember if Kubrick's like that.
I don't know. Kubrick's really demanding. I don't know if he's like that with his actors, though.
Yeah, but like there have been obviously really good movies made with that method, and you've got a creator in your director who has this vision, and he needs everyone to do precisely what's in his head because he's not creating on the stage; he's already created it. You've got different methods of movie making, and if I made a movie, I wouldn't have any idea what it was going to look like until I started putting it together, and that's the exact opposite of somebody like that, and so. I don't think that's necessarily wrong, although it would be really easy to get away with being a really horrible human being. I mean, that's tough, even with adults. But, like, if they know what they're getting themselves into, and they know that that's how he works, I can see an argument for it. But with children, is it enough to just have parental consent? And, like, even with directors that are fair to the kids, as fair as they can be, it's like... It's, hypothetically, I'd like to buy into, parents, you just expect that parents, like, take care of their kids right and are raising their children correctly, and that you could trust, parental consent, he or she knows what's good for their kid, so it's okay that they're there, but you can't always trust that. And they might be doing it as a means for an end themselves, as you said, because, this is awful, but I'm sure there are people in Hollywood that have kids just to live more vicariously through them. Like we've seen so much of this. We've seen so much of this satire and social commentary. Like there's an Angel episode about it. Well, not about that exactly, but you know what I mean. Like the Hollywood system and how people, especially women, are terrified to ever grow old. And
eternity.
That's a reason people have children sometimes, and in other avenues of life as well, not just Hollywood.
Yeah, and I mean, this one question opens lots of things for because there's a difference between something being for the sake of art and being for the sake of anything else.
That's right.
For the sake of science, or for the sake of history, or for the sake of the government or the world. All of those questions are treated almost like of course there's a right and wrong answer. But it's never the same way with art. Like the stuff Jared Leto's doing on the set of Suicide Squad, a lot of that's pushing some pretty harsh boundaries. And it's all for the sake of his performance.
Yeah, but at what point is it is it going too far and affecting the people around him in negatively in unfair ways? You had a lot of talk with Dark Knight that Heath Ledger stayed in character a lot, but he wasn't
tormenting his co-stars.
Yeah, and I've seen interviews, and all of those actors have very different reactions to it.
Yeah,
and some of
Viola
them,
Davis made sure that Leto never did anything like that to her. But at the same time, even if they have different reactions to it, these are just the stars we're interviewing. What about the guy that Jared Leto had go out and do this stuff for him, or the people that are just on set, lighting and helping out technically, that have to watch Leto do this stuff?
Yeah, they don't need that to happen to them to get a particular performance out of them, but also okay, this is a completely different topic at this point, but but since you brought that up, but yeah, my mind is going to 100 different places as we're talking about this. At what point does it become Leto's movie?
Right? Yeah, that's a good question.
Right? He's manipulating the tone of the set to be what he thinks it should be. Joker's not the whole movie. He's not the impetus for everything that happens in that. I mean, we haven't seen the movie yet.
We don't know yet, but
we don't know yet. But I'm just saying that, at what point does he take over and kind of like he's setting the tone when he does that? Is that even going to end up being fair? But that's a totally different time. I mean, at some point maybe we could even do a spin-off of this topic and talk about method acting. Because that's. I mean, it's method acting, but it's going so far beyond method acting, I don't even know what to call it anymore. Like,
yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like at a point, Leto's acting did not demand doing what he is doing.
No, and I mean, like,
he crossed that line a little while ago.
He could do crazy things with himself. Like, he could surround himself with that stuff, but, like, why does it have to affect everybody else? And like, yeah. I mean, like, honestly, wouldn't it affect those people enough to just send them pictures of stuff? Like, couldn't he just send pictures of all the scary, creepy things he did?
He could.
And even that could be kind of could be too disturbing. And, like, I don't mean to be overly sensitive about this stuff. There's a lot, like, I totally understand staying in character and being really spooky all the time because you need to stay in that headspace. But I think at some point you're affecting people negatively unnecessarily too far.
Yeah,
I think.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's not really a question of, like, what your tolerance for this stuff is. It's an ethical question. It's like, is it right or is it wrong to do this?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's going to vary depending on who you are. Like, for example, like, we both have very, very different policies on cursing. And children will naturally have two very different policies on cursing. But it's not about each individual case and how they feel about the subject. It's overall, is it right or wrong for this thing to happen?
But again, some of that is kind of case by case because, like, I'm not completely against cursing on principle. Like, when you say, it's always a right or wrong, when you say it's a right or wrong thing, do you mean, like, overall or just depending on what the circumstance is?
Depending on the circumstances, like, there are places where cursing should not happen, there are places where cursing should happen, stuff like that. But, like, particularly to get back to the main topic of with kids, like, if your parent isn't okay with children cursing, but the director needs it, or if your parents are and the kid doesn't understand what he's saying, or he understands what he's saying, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like there's not a right answer until, like you said, it becomes a problem with parental consent or even with the child. It's like the kid has to really know what he's getting himself into unless he doesn't have to know that. But
yeah, and like part of the issue is just like there are groups and there are lobbies and there are unions for actors and actresses and directors and writers. No, there's nothing about kids. Like, I Googled this for a while before we started talking about it. There is almost no information about what the rights of a child are outside of their parents signing it away.
See, that's suspicious to me. And I want to go back to something you said earlier where you were talking about for the sake of art. Something in your list of the sake of things that you never brought up was the sake of business. And this very often, the things that we're doing might be more for the sake of making money than it is for the sake of the art. And of course, those two things go hand in hand a lot. But there's probably a reason that you don't see a lot of information about this because it is so mired in ethical weirdness. And
like, people don't want to talk about it. It's a difficult topic. Like, even us having this discussion, there's lots of things we could say. There's lots of blanket statements. There's lots of individual cases. It's not an easy thing.
No, I mean, and I'm not prepared to make any blanket statements because, well, I mean, I don't like to do that anyway, but also because, like, you can't just take kids out of movies.
Yeah,
and you can't say that you can never have a kid do a disturbing thing in a movie, and that there aren't places where that's really warranted and it needs to be there. Are there times where it's really gratuitous? Yes, of course. That's true with all kinds of things in movies. And are there times where it would seem really exploitative? Yeah, and there's a lot of times where women are unnecessarily sexually exploited also. But then it gets really sticky. If they signed up for it, is it okay? And then all you can do is talk about it. And I don't know that you ever come to a right answer.
And then I think part of the difficulty is, like, if you break down ethics, everyone assumes, like, there's hundreds of right and wrong principles. There's only three. Like, in the history of philosophy, if you study any sort of ethical theory, there are only three. And all three of them were written in the context and for exclusively males that are adults. Like, most of these don't come from a perspective of including everyone. They were later recontextualized to do that, but that's not what they started as. So, like, if you go by, like, a Batman Kantian principle of things are inherently right or wrong, the origins of that only apply to one group, and you are already taking it out of its context to apply it to other people.
That's really interesting.
So, like, it's naturally difficult.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do final thoughts, unless that was yours, because that's a pretty great place, maybe to end this. But before we go on to rants, any last words on this? It's hard for me not to just end this with, boy, I just don't know. I mean, I almost feel like I need to be on the set of every movie before I can make a determination on each thing.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is just like, because we have commenters, because people watch this, just talk about it. You know, this discussion should be in the same league as everything else that happens with actings and rights and such.
Yeah, let's not sweep it under the rug. Let's not pretend like kids don't matter and like there might not need to be. I mean, I don't mean to be like a crusader about this. I know I get on my soapbox about children a lot. I mean, kids just matter to me. But like. But like maybe there need to be champions for children's rights on sets of movies. Maybe, I don't know, because I don't even know how many people are being taken advantage of. I mean, your closed sets, you don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, it might be the case that this isn't really a problem. It's just a matter of,
and I'm not saying it is, but as dark and relentless as a lot of, and I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of things that aren't this way, but we pushed envelopes to the point where a lot of our most popular entertainment is kind of dark and relentless, and we've got kids involved in that stuff. So surely we have kids. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this, but tell me if you agree with this. I would assume that we have kids in the sorts of rough scenes that we're talking about, like proportionally now, be it on television or film or whatever it is, than we would have 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, especially when you think about like tragic origins and superheroes and such, how many little kids had to get themselves in the headspace of their mom and dad are about to be shot in front of them so we can get Batman's origin on film.
And then at the same time, I don't think it's inherently wrong to get kids in that headspace. I mean, I think...
I mean, it just depends,
necessarily,
right?
Yeah, and that's all I come down, because, like, at the same time, I mean, I probably sound like I'm really contradicting myself, but, like, I just don't know. It just depends on what exactly we're talking about, because, like, on the other hand, kids learn so much from looking at things from a perspective they've never looked at things from before. Yeah. You don't want kids to be, and I mean, I'm not suggesting that this is a good thing. You don't want to intentionally put kids in situations where they get bullied all the time. Bullying is bad. However, kids that get bullied learn things from that. I mean, we learn things from adversity, but that doesn't mean that we should use that as a justification for putting kids in traumatic situations.
Yeah. No, I mean, it very much depends. And I mean, like, art has impacts on people. You watch something and it makes you feel a certain way. It's the same when you're in it. Maybe even more so when you're in it. Especially
sometimes less so if you have no idea what's going on. As you suggested. That's true. And I
mean, that's why I get sticky with kids, like, because we don't know if they understand what they're talking about. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It would at least just be nice to have that discussed somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I would just like people to be thoughtful about it. I know that's kind of my go-to answer for all kinds of things, but I would just like to see. I would like to know that more people in Hollywood care about that and want to make sure that the kids on sets are okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. If someone in the comments knows whether or not this is a thing, please link it, because I want to find out.
Yeah, if I knew that there was a lot of conscious, like, I don't mean coddling, but just people on sets making sure that kids are okay, I would feel so much better about some of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Well, let's go. This was a really interesting discussion. I don't know that we got anywhere.
I mean,
I don't know that we accomplished
discussion out of it, which I guess was our goal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we accomplished it. We didn't come down anywhere beyond just that's ethical stickiness.
Yeah. No, it's not an easy conversation to have.
I think there are, and I'm sure this subject has been written about, and we talked about some of that happening, but there's a really good short story or a novel in there.
Oh, probably so, yeah.
Steve, I am very excited to hear your rant for this evening.
Okay, yes, this will be fun. Today my rant is about volume numbers, comic book volume numbers. Okay, so Eric and I were on the phone a couple nights ago talking about this, where the fact that Detective Comics and Action are coming back and they're going to reach 1,000, but they're going to count the 52 issues of New 52 to get to 1,000. And he doesn't like that because it feels disingenuous. The book didn't run to 1,000 naturally. Now, here's the confusing and annoying thing, and DC is going to start having this now that they've done it with Action, but Marvel's had it tons of times, because Marvel volume numbers don't make any sense. Both Iron Man and Captain America used to share a book in the 1960s called Tales of Suspense. Tales of Suspense 39 to 99 was a book that would co-star Captain America and Iron Man, side by side. And then after 99, Iron Man got his book and Captain America got his book. The dumb thing is Captain America started off from issue 99 of Tales of Suspense to issue 100 of Captain America, and Iron Man started at number 1. So Iron Man had his anniversary of 500 the same year Captain America had his anniversary of 600, which doesn't make any sense. Now, the logic for Marvel is, well, Captain America had a book before Tales of Suspense in the 60s. Well, not in the 60s, during World War II. The World War II book only got to 70 issues. So it doesn't add up to 600 no matter what you do. There's no reason for you to jump around that way. Even more so, Iron Man later and Captain America later have several volume numbers, right? Like you go to Captain America, volume 1 of Captain America ends just short of 500, and then you get, not short, like 450, something like that. And then you go to volume 2, which is the Heroes Are Born stuff. Then you come back later to volume 3, which is, I forget who wrote that, but I think that's the Marvel Knights stuff. And then you get a Brubaker's run, and you get volume 4, volume 5, and such. And you compound all those to get to the next milestone of 600. But then volume 5 of Captain America, when it changes numbers, is now technically volume 1 again, because 600 comes from those original numberings. Same with Iron Man, because Invincible Iron Man turned into Iron Man 500, which would not be part of Invincible Iron Man's canon, it'd be part of Iron Man's canon. So where these volume numbers converge on each other and where they get started don't make any sense to me. If you're going to keep a book, just keep the numbering restricted to that. Stop doing these anniversary things where the book's numbering changes. You can acknowledge that you reached a certain pinnacle, but actually count the numbers that matter.
Well, and with Captain America, it's weird. I mean, you can't make everything based on canon because we reboot and we retcon and stuff. But, like, Captain America's weird because, like, counting those issues from Golden Age, that's a different company. We're not even talking about this, like...
It's a different company, and I don't understand it. How could Iron Man start with 1 and Captain America start with 100? There's no logic to that.
Like, did the previous Captain America book in Golden Age, like end that neatly at that? I'm sure it didn't.
I doubt it. I mean, the book went on like 10 years past World War II's ending. So, I mean, I imagine it's just like repeated stories within World War II, like MASH.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. That kind of thing drives me crazy. When you said volume numbers, I thought you were gonna complain about trades. Which is also a thing.
No, that is most certainly a thing, again, with Captain America and Iron Man, because when crossovers happen and important issues are collected, but they don't have the numbers, so you got, like, Bat Fraction Iron Man Volume 7 and Volume 8, where there's something in between that should be, like, Volume 7.5, or just should be 8, and then you jump to 9, that's annoying, too.
See, I'll take this even further. This is a problem all over the place, where you have a thing that, like, even if the numbers do add up, I always think it's weird to not call something by its number in a sequence and then suddenly start counting it that way. Because, it's kind of, it can be confusing for people where they're like, did I miss things? Were there other numbers? And, like, anybody that finally jumps into a thing that is looking for the numbers before thing, it's like, no, it starts at 5, and then everything else before that was called, you just had a subtitle and didn't have a number when you're talking about, movies and things. Why? And I think I actually maybe ranted about this once, but that's why I'm tacking it on here and not making this a separate rant. But, like, why would you... This isn't exactly the same thing, but, like, but we do this with comics, where it's not numbered, and then all of a sudden we go, this thing number whatever. We just counted all of them. Why did we do that with Mario Kart? Why was there suddenly a Mario Kart 7 when the other 6 didn't have numbers? And why did we have a number for a game the first time we start calling them by number on a handheld? So that kind of thing drives me crazy all the time.
Oh yeah, it's really confusing, particularly for new people. Like if you want to get someone into Mario Kart, you want to get someone into Captain America. If someone asks me, what are the Brubaker issues? I'll be like, okay, buy Captain America 1 to 50, then buy 600 to 619, and then go back and buy 1 through 19. See, and you will have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I don't mean to compound your rant too much because this could be a rant all by itself, but don't you think that we could fix this problem for us, for new readers especially, with trades if we labeled trades correctly? Because
totally.
because the thing is, it's hard to do it with the numbers. You just don't necessarily know where stories start and where they stop, and you know what matters with other things and stuff. But like with collections, why can't you just? This is what I think we should be doing. I think we should make it this simple. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that come in new to comics and they just want to read stories and they probably don't care about who's writing, but you could educate them that very often one person's run, this isn't always the case, but very often, especially now, like one writer's run, those stories are all going to kind of matter together, and then there's a new run and that's a new person's take. Even if they're connected, by and large, that's usually how it's done. Why don't we just have it, no matter what you call the trade, no matter what the name of the story is, because we don't even number trades. We don't even make it really clear that, like, with Snyder, you have Court of the Owls, and then the next thing is Death of the Family, and that, like, we don't make it clear with the trades all the time. What we ought to do, I think, is just put the last name of the writer, especially for current stuff, put the last name of the writer on the top of the book, and make that the volume number. Snyder Batman Volume 1. Morrison Batman Volume 1. Why don't we do that?
I mean, that certainly gets even trickier, though, because there are writers that jump in between big story arcs. Like Detective Comics had runs with a couple of writers that like wrote 5 issues, then there were 2 issues by someone else, and they wrote 5 issues again, but it's all linear. So
but that's why you make it a
collect those separate issues would be weird.
But that's why you make it a subheading. You just collect those separate issues that aren't as important. You just tack them onto the ends of those trades. You have that be a subheading.
Yeah.
And then you just, like, or maybe even just kind of a footnote, but just make it clear.
I mean, I'd simplify it even further and just say, okay, here's a trade that's Iron Man Volume 1, numbers 1 through 18. The next trade is Iron Man Volume 1, numbers 19 through 25, or something.
And we put that in tiny, tiny font all the time on the backs of these, where it's just collecting Iron Man number 1 through 14, and you're just like, people, but you have to actively look for it. Sometimes it's not even there. Why isn't that on the cover? It doesn't have to be emblazoned all across the front. Why can't it at least be like in the bottom corner or something? Why can't we be uniformed enough maybe to even have like it be in the same place on your single issues and on your trades, where it's like, you know, Captain America number 1 in one of the corners, and then the trades same place 1 through 12. You're done.
Yeah, just
right?
Make it organized. It's crazy that we as geeks with long boxes and boards and pads and such are more organized than the things we actually collect.
Why isn't it standardized?
I don't know. I don't get it.
Because again, you can once again. Let me reiterate. You can. This is a separate rant. I get. You can separate. I mean. Yeah. You can separate these any way you want to. You can sell them any way you want to. If you want to really hard sell Death of the Family as Death of the Family and not as Batman numbers whatever or Snyder's next volume or whatever, you can still do that and have the numbers. Like this, there's no reason this should. There's no reason this should affect the commercial nature of it, and how how we sell them. You sell them any way you want to. Give me the numbers on the front.
Yeah.
Steve and I just solved comic publication. There you go. We solved it. Hope someone from somewhere was paying attention, was watching this. I know they weren't, because this isn't even the thing in the title. But you know, all right. So here's my quick rant. We should probably end now, and I should call that my rant. But but I'm gonna go ahead and do the rant I was going to do. So I've been playing. I talked about this on my last recommend, and I might do a recommend on this at some point. But I've been on a fighting game kick lately, Steve, because I got a fight stick, and I love my new fight stick. I got the Injustice fight stick. It's awesome, and
that is cool.
I'll show it to you later. It's cool. And anyway, so I've been playing Dead or Alive 5, and I know some people are like, "Oh, that really sexually exploitive." Yeah. And it kind of is, but it's really fun. So Dead or Alive 5 does this annoying thing that a lot of fighting games do, and it's more annoying here than I've ever seen it, which is the story mode is made almost necessary it actually is necessary for a couple things. It's made necessary to really get the ins and outs of the mechanics of the game, because when you start each match, it gives you this kind of bonus mission, and that helps to teach you how to do certain kinds of moves and develop strategy, and then some of the like really, really complicated, tough stuff. And if you can pull those things off, you get rewarded for it, and so you're actively trying to become a master at playing this game, and that's in the story mode. Well, I don't care about the story, and it's boring. And there's too many places where, with the cutscenes, they keep making you watch the same cutscene from a slightly different perspective, and it's really stupid. And you can skip them, but the load times are so long that you can like make a sandwich almost, but it's not that bad. But you're sitting around and you're like, if only this was just like a different mode, have the story mode if you must, if you really think that you need to have a story about this, because it's okay. So I'm gonna say this: the reason I bought this is because it has some Virtua Fighter characters in it, and it's actually kind of better than Virtua Fighter in a lot of ways. I love it. It's like getting new and way better Virtua Fighter, and the story of it is pretty much the same thing as Virtua Fighter, which is, everybody's going to this like World Fighting Championship thing, except this one is called Dead or Alive. And I don't know why, because no one dies. I don't understand that. But anyway, if someone can explain that title to me, I always thought this was a survival horror game. I had no idea that it was even a fighting game. And I don't really care about the story of this, and it's really typical, and it's got the same kind of like mad science plot, somebody gets cloned or something that you always have with these things, or often, and I don't care, I just want to skip those parts. But I also have to play the story mode in order to unlock the characters that are the reason I bought the game, because I bought it for the Virtua Fighter characters. I have to play the story mode in order to do that. So I just started skipping past them. Well, you can't press a button to skip. You have to press start, and then you have to go to skip the cutscene, and then you have to wait around, and then it goes to the next scene, and sometimes it's a fight, sometimes it's another cutscene. Sometimes there's like 3 or 4 in a row before you finally get to a fight. I don't need the context of the fights, because you're just in the same arenas that you're going to be in arcade mode. Why can't you just have something akin to an arcade mode that also is teaching you how to play the game and giving you all those strategy things?
People have to understand that they've made those games just for the fight. So why would the cutscenes ever be that long to begin with?
Oh yeah, and they are, and I don't need that. I don't understand. And it feels like one of those.
No offense to those creators, but obviously there's no story. There's no story to Young Justice. It's very weak. It's very bare bones. No one cares about it. The comics are a different thing, but not the game.
Yeah, and you're right. You've got programmers that are putting their heart and soul and spending a lot of time with them. The game would have sold just as well without it.
Yeah, you don't need that one random line in Injustice where Batman's like, yeah, this makes it so our pain tolerance is higher. Because it doesn't matter when Doomsday's punching you through the center of the earth.
No, I'm with you. Like those kinds of games, I can much more I can be much more okay with you have an imbalance based on the characters that you saw in the comics with, Catwoman can theoretically defeat Doomsday if he's played by a 3-year-old who can't play fighting games. Yeah, okay. I don't care about that necessarily. Once you put a story in it, now I start expecting things to be more consistent.
Yeah.
And if it's just a fighting game, it's not it's fun to see how close you can get, but if you make it as imbalanced as it really would be in the real world, there would be no point in ever choosing certain characters. Just make a fighting game.
Yeah.
And just give everybody a different set of abilities and moves that make sense for what they look like and who they are, and that allow the player to strategize differently depending on who he wants to play with. It doesn't have to make story sense.
No, it doesn't. It's a fighting game. We acknowledge this. That's what Street Fighter is based on.
I thought the story in Injustice was fun. I might at some point do a rewind just because I think that would be hilarious. And I've heard the comics are really good, but... I
like the comics, yeah.
But, that I actually... And maybe it's just because those are characters that I'm familiar with and it was fun to watch. That I actually watched the cutscenes for because I wanted to see what happened. But, most of the time I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and a lot of times with fighting game franchises like Dead or Alive or Street Fighter or Dragon Ball Z or anything else, most of the time the stories are kind of exactly the same. and you're just
what I'm
repeating
saying.
events over and over again to get to the next iteration of the same fight you've already played.
Yeah, especially when it's like number 5 in a franchise, you can't tell me the stories of the other 4 games aren't exactly the story.
Yeah, and I mean,
I don't know
like
that.
Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter have interesting canons.
Yeah,
but that's not the intent of those games. They were never built to do that.
Here's the thing. I think there's potentially a really good story in Virtua Fighter. I'd love to see it as a movie or an animated series or a comic book. I don't need it in that video game.
Yeah.
I just want to fight people in the video game. That's what I'm there for. And I feel this way about a lot of games, and I've learned that there are really good story-driven games, and I'm talking about this a lot now, where the interactive nature of it feels necessary. Show me the fighting game where that's the case. Show me that. I mean, like, I love for somebody to challenge me on this, so that I play the fighting game where I can't imagine appreciating the actual point of the game, the fighting people part of the game, and getting good at that without knowing who these characters are and where they come from. I want to play that game. That's my rant. Someone is going to say something, and I'm going to be forced to go buy fighting games, which is fine because I'm really excited about fighting games right now.
A story-driven fighting game sounds like fun, but it better be a really good story.
I haven't, like, and even if there was a really good story, you'd be hard pressed to make me feel like you had to have it.
Yeah.
If the game,
it's difficult.
If the gameplay is good. Like, again, I know this is my go-to thing, but, like, Arkham Asylum, like, no, I needed both. Like both of those things were important.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that in a fighting game. Maybe it exists. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'll be real surprised. But yeah, so, like, all I want to do right now is buy every fighting game that was ever released on 360 because I have a fight stick and I can't stop playing with it so much. That sounds awful. But it's you know, just everybody get their heads out of the gutter. That sounds awful, but that's not what I meant.
Fighting games are good stress relievers, so...
Oh yeah, that's what I've been using them for. Absolutely. Well, anyway, and it lights up. I just love things that light up. Everybody, thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed our show this week. Steve, thanks for being here. It was a lot of fun to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a good discussion.
I will see you again with another co-host next week, and in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxley.
Oh, and then you guys say reminding you to support your local comics.
Oh yeah, okay, and reminding you to support your local comics.
Thanks for watching. Bye.